Welcome everyone. So the reason I'm giving this talk today is because I actually did this for the MariaDB Foundation, and that's as much as a bio intro as anyone really needs. So the lessons learned from here is to make containers part of your core infrastructure, you first have to make sure that containers are a product of your software project. So to be a product, it has to be a container that is usable in its intended environment for whatever reason, scope that is for your project. So obviously to get a container that's usable, you need to have the skills and follow the container best practices guidelines, and that'll get you a good way into sort of not being inundated with bug reports and feature requests when you push out your first container. And it certainly will help the backwards compatibility for the users, because otherwise they get something, you totally rechange it and they need to work out how to use it again. So try to get it right first time, or as close to practically possible. So in this example, this is a MariaDB container. It does the things a database container should do. It initializes a database and listens for a connection. What that means for you might be totally different. To be a product of a container, it's like your code, whatever that means. You need to accept bug reports and feature requests. You need to help out users. You need to give release notes. Now, you write up release notes and it sort of says what changed in the release for the container. Honestly, I'm unclear as to whether users would actually ever read this, except if they had a problem. But you know, if they've got a problem and want to know what went on, at least it's there for them to read. Going along with this, on release notes and just generally being a product, writing some documentation, write up some frequently asked questions, because you will get the same question over and over again as you do containers. Write how to get help. There's a whole bunch of people that consider, you know, bug reporting things as like the place to get help. That may not be the case with your community. The other thing, to be a product, you need to have continuous integration around it. So this is from MariaDB's CI system. We build and test that the container can be run on every server commit that goes in. Obviously, to be a CI system and have tests around it, there has to be tests around your container. i.e. it needs to run in a predictable way, and these need to be, you know, codified in a test case. And I'll show an example a bit later. Since you've got your CI actually generated containers, you may as well actually save them. So here we've done saving of the containers by pushing up to Quay.io. It could be any public repository, and those can actually just be consumed by anyone. So these are effectively what a software project might have previously considered a nightly release, except these ones run, you know, cross-platform, cross-distro, and that kind of thing. So you've saved an overhead of nightly build accommodating every distro by just pushing a container up on release. So while you may sort of test containers or provide the containers externally, I guess it's also important, if you've got important user bases like, say, WordPress for MariaDB, to test against MariaDB's tests there. Since you've got the container built, this runs through MariaDB's tests in, WordPress's tests in MariaDB CI on that. And important thing, if you actually put a CI system up, it's important to keep an eye on it. We unfortunately didn't, and it was rather embarrassing to see bug reports after a release that says, you know, there was actually a fault that we could have seen in the CI system. So keep an eye on it. There were some reasons behind this, i.e. we were changing repository formats within the CI system, needed to revert back, and a bunch of loose coupling that we've now addressed. But yep, if you do CI systems, look at them. Once you've got a container released, what's a good idea is if there's to consider if there's something you're not testing that maybe you should be testing or that other people expect to be testing. So in this case, as I've done a pull request up to SQLX, which is a MariaDB compatible API or crate. Sorry, get the Rust terminology for talking to MariaDB. So what was convenient is that, you know, they had actions around GitHub Actions that use containers, so pushing in a different MariaDB version from the latest branch was quite easy for them. This paid off rather recently. They put a bug report, and a bug report that sort of comes in before we've done a GA release about some incompatibility is a much preferable way to get a bug report than, you know, scrambling after the fact saying, oops, something was wrong. Do we need to re-roll all our packages? Do we need to do that kind of thing? So having the breadth of experience of the community and leveraging open source technologies makes, smooth things happen in advance. What can also happen is users can actually see these containers. So in this case, a user puts in a bug report, says, I've tested on the very latest version, i.e. the version that's in the Git repository. So it's not often developers get that. Sometimes if your release cycle is between 3 or 6 months, they go, have I fixed that or have I not? Getting a bug report from a user saying, yeah, it's still a bug, it's still there, does matter. What's better is you can sort of do a fix, and in this case, the fix was within 2 hours, and where was the container? Well, it was in the CI system being produced, so they could actually have a workaround, which is, I thought, a pretty good turnaround for them. There was a glitch in the CI system, so I had to trigger stuff manually, but yeah, that's the general principle. Once you got it there, it's easy to move forwards. So how is this done? On the repository for the container system of MariaDB, there's 2 main branches. There's a next branch and there's a master branch. So the next branch actually refers to where we put actually new container features. If we need to change the container because the server changed a different way slightly, in that kind of thing, that can be put there. The master branch is there so that if we need to do a security release for whatever reason, that's just going to include a security fix on that branch. So we're going to release it from the same code base that was there previously. Obviously, with the buildbot, we're going to actually be testing against the next branch. So all the containers built are on the next branch. Those are pushed up to Quay.io. And all our interoperable libraries and everyone else in the community is testing against the thing is going to come out for the end user at the end of it. Test cases, don't cringe. It's just a bash script. Don't have to, there's no exam on it. So I'm not sure actually whether to be proud or, you know, slightly ashamed of this, but you know, I'm proud that, you know, there are test cases. It may be an ugly bash script with a bunch of case statements between them, but it can be actually run everywhere, and it covers the scope of the testing that ensures the containers remain interoperable. If anyone's got any good ideas on container test frameworks, all ears. Save it to the questions. So from the container repository, this is CI. So we've got a bunch of BuildBot configuration that adds a couple of steps for download the scripts, build the container, run the tests, and push the manifest up to Quay.io. And they're not exceptionally complicated, and they're sort of pushed up into a public branch there as well. The main reason that is so I don't need to, fiddle with the configuration of the BuildBot frequently when I was trying to get it right. But it makes it readable anyway. Saves a bunch of double Python escaping and and Bash escaping at the same time, which is fun. It's fun when you get SQL escaping and Bash escaping in the same thing as well. As I showed before, all these scripts push containers up into the container repositories. What you'll notice in these ones, I've actually put in a couple of tags, and you can see the groupings on the right on the Quay interface, that there's an earliest LTS. Second from the bottom, there's a very latest tag. I think it was a kind of pun on, latest being a tag by default in containers, and may as well have very latest. And down the bottom, latest LTS. So when you engage communities that want to ensure your interoperability with your product, they're not always going to say, yes, we'll do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 current branches that we're actually doing, that they probably only want to test 1 or 2. And this way you can actually pick them out such that other projects can use a tag, on that. And, when we update the latest long-term support or the earliest long-term support release, we don't need to go around to every product and say, update your version. You don't need to test our out-of-date versions. So this makes it easy for those projects as well. Adjusting the configuration, this is what I did for SQLX. The left-hand side of the diff was effectively replacing a 10.3 test. So what I've done is I just changed the image name to include the full Quay.io repository specification for the containers I've generated. And changed a few other things to match the style. So this is what they accepted on that, and this is why I, get bug reports into MariaDB that sort of you've got an interoperability, and we find out, before we've done a release or before SQLX has done a release. There's cases where, other projects may accidentally break compatibility with MariaDB without testing. So this is a way to ensure it remains compatible. To convince an upstream repository to do tests, a Quay.io repository that sort of says, we built this on every commit there, needs a little bit more of an exclamation, because it's like, am I going to get a CI system based on a Quay.io images that you're producing that are just you testing around with code. So I'll summarize that too long comment with, say why testing the latest is good, explain why mistakes have been made. In this case, they had some MySQL incompatibility, but it's the same sort of thing, that occasionally incompatibilities creep in when you don't test, strangely enough. What you're also saying, and what I was getting at before, is you're getting the latest tested version of the code. We're not pushing things into these branches because they're half-baked. They have been considered complete by the developers who push the code in, whether that be MariaDB changes or packaging changes or whatever. So you're getting what is effectively going to be in the next release, and that's important for the projects to realize and understand. And the more you can explain this up front means that they're not going to come back and doubt it or just forget about it. And also, I guess what you're trying to do when you're submitting a pull request is saying interoperability with your product is important, whether it be SQLX, PHP, WordPress, and I could do a long list for MariaDB, but for other projects, yeah, who's important to maintain interoperability for. So yeah, while you're actually being able to produce containers and sort of you push other people to do it, you may as well write a blog article about it and see if anyone just does it on their own. See if anyone realizes that our interoperability with MariaDB is important. And strangely enough, when you look at the logs, you see funny artifacts like this. It's like obviously the OpenShift community realized that their interoperability with MariaDB was important, and they just started using the containers because, hey, they're easy to use. So that's all I was going to present today.